Hi everybody, welcome to Sprague Woodturning. My name is Jim. It's a beautiful day, so I figured today's a good day to do a processing video. So I've got a bunch of yellow birch burl in the back of my truck, and it's actually all from one big burl, but it was cut up. I think the burl was 3/4 of the way around a tree. So that's how it was processed. So there's 3 large chunks, and I got a smaller chunk. And what I'm going to do is cut these up into bowl blanks, and then we're going to put them on the lathe and core them and see actually how many bowls we can get out of these 4 blanks that are in the back of the truck. Anyway, that's this week's video. I realize it's not resin, I realize it's not inlay, and I realize it's not pretty, but I know that a lot of wood turners are following me to see how I process this stuff to get the best yield. And oddly enough, these are very popular videos too on my channel. So anyway, that's this week. If you haven't subscribed, please consider doing so. And of course, anytime you give my videos a thumbs up, it certainly helps with the analytics. All right, let's get these pieces off the back of the truck and see what we're dealing with. Buy a tall truck, they said. That'll be good. By the way, this is a really cool tool. It's called a pickaroo. I bought it from Lee Valley here in Canada. And you just drive it into the wood and then you can pull on it instead of trying to grab it and pull it with your hands. Works really good. Highly recommend getting one. Pickaroo, Lee Valley. Okay, so this is the first one we're going to tackle. And as you can see, it's cut like a pie. Realize this might be a little hard to see because of the sun, but you know, we've got grain that really isn't all that good here, so it comes down into here. This center is bad. There's a saw mark down in here, so this goes in easily 6 inches, so that have to be cut out of there anyway. On the back side, got some bark inclusions. I don't think this one's too deep, but this one certainly is, so it's an issue right here. So what I think I'm going to do is flip this over so we got bark side up, and I'll mark out 3 bowl blanks and then slice these off like this, and then we'll clean these up individually. Okay, sorry about the light. The sun has gone behind a tree here. So this is what I've come up with. This is the easiest way, I think, to explain this so you can see it. So there's an 18-inch. I believe that's 12, and on the other side here is 13. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to slice down a little bit on an angle like this. This has got to be tapered anyway. And I'll do the same thing over here on this side, just a little bit, nothing huge. And then after we get that done, we can kind of flip this over and then slice off the bottom to where we want that to be. So that's what we're going to do next. Okay, so here's our 3 pieces of burl, and I've got these propped up so that we can look at this. So this one, here's, again, sorry for the lighting, it is better, it's after lunch now, so anyway, I'm going to slice this off about here, straight down, and get rid of all this heart, and that will still leave us a good solid 8-inch deep bowl. This is the centerpiece, the big one, so that one was the one that was on the right. This one here, something through here, something like that. There is some cracks down in here, so I don't know, I may even come back. I'm not going to come back that far, probably somewhere around here. And then the one that was on the left, pretty much just straight down through there like that. So anyway, that's what I'm doing next. Welcome to this week's video. Trust everybody is having a great week. So if you look at me here, cutting these burls up is not really an easy thing to figure out sometimes. You can see I keep moving this around. I'm looking at different angles, and just when I think that maybe I've got it set up right, okay, yeah, good to go. Nope, that's not good. Oh, forget about that void on the other side. So yeah, before you make these cuts, just make sure that you're perfectly confident that you're making the right cut, because once you make it, you can't change it. Yeah, it's really unfortunate that the inside of this burl was as unstable as it was. You can look at the depth there. You could have got another bowl blank out of the piece that I'm cutting off, or even if you had to split the difference, you would have had, a good sized bowl blank on the bark side, and of course another large blank in the piece that I cut off. And again, just moving these pieces around and try and figure out where these cuts are going to give you the best yield. And here's the difference between a sharp saw and a dull saw. Somewhere along the line I hit something, and you can just see that this saw actually stops cutting. And I actually lost a tooth off my chain. Okay, so these are 3 bowl blanks. As you can see, this actually fell out of there when I turned it over. So we're probably going to have to cut this back even further to get into good wood. It's full of ring shanks, so that's the issue with that. Anyway, we're going to have a decent bowl blank there. Same thing here. It's going to be about 6 or 7 inches thick. But anyway, these are good to go for rounding on the bandsaw. I'm going to have to slice that one down again, and then I might knock the corners off it just to lighten it up a bit. But anyway, I'll do that after we get the other big one cut up. Okay, so the camera keeps shutting off on me, so I'm not happy about that. I don't know if it's a cold or what the deal is. So this is a little bit of an oddball situation here. You can see that crack goes all the way down. So it's probably pretty much the majority of this burl. So what I'm going to do is come back and cut this kind of like this angle here, and then that way we should be able to get a natural edge burl out of the top of this. We should be able to get another big one over here, and then a smaller one on the other side. So that's what I'm doing now. I'll try and draw these out for you. So I'm trying to stay out of the light here. The way I've got this laid out now, we should get a 12-inch blank out of there, maybe 10 inches, 12 or 13 on the other side. And then this one in the center will be 18. So we're losing our light here fast. I'm trying to stay out of it, but anyway, let's cut this up. I should also mention that I'm using a Husqvarna 365 with a 20-inch bar on it. I prefer to use the 20-inch bar. I find that that gives you a lot more flexibility, especially when it comes to cutting up longer bowl blanks. Yeah, I was lucky that I didn't have to get out my 3120 XP. The bar on the saws was long enough to get the job done, because the 3120 XP is a very heavy saw. Okay, I thought I'd show this before I quit for today. So there is 8 total. Some of them are certainly bigger than others. With this group of burl, I hope to get about 20 bowls out of that burl. And I'll be honest with you that I thought it was in better shape than it is. But there's actually some pretty deep cracks and ring shanks in it. Of course, here's the unusable pile. But in the past, this would be firewood. Now that I'm doing resin work, I might be able to put a few of these pieces together and make a resin burl combination. Anyway, that's it for me today. My back needs a break. Anyway, we'll see you tomorrow. Okay, so before we round, I wanted to point this out. This is called ring shanks, or if you want to call it ring delaminations. So this is very common in burls, more so probably in yellow birch burls. And this one here is loose as well. So, you know, originally this was going to be a natural edge bowl blank. Problem is I need to grab this with the chuck on the base. So in order to get in a good wood, I could probably go in another 3 inches, and then our bowl blank is down to maybe, you know, whatever, 2 or 3 inches deep. So what I think I'm going to do is forego that, and I'm going to just turn this like a normal bowl. And as I work deeper into the bowl blank, this should be more stable. And if I got ring shanks on one side of the bowl, that's not really that big of a deal. I can tackle that with resins or CA glues when it's dry. Anyway, let's fire up the bandsaw. So here I'm using my General International bandsaw, and I'm using blades, bandsaw blades from R&D Bandsaw Blades here in Canada, down in the Toronto area, I believe. And they are 3 teeth per inch, and it's a 1/2 inch wide blade, and it's made specifically for wood turners and furniture makers. It has a wide curve so it doesn't tend to get stuck in green wood. There is a link in the description below. The Amazon links, check them out. You won't be disappointed. And here I'm just using a 5/8 spade bit with the tip cut off it so it doesn't go in real deep. And that's where my live center goes. So it's important that it goes into good solid wood and not just bark when you mount it between centers. Okay, so here's where we're at. We've got 8 blanks ready to go on the lathe. I'm going to take them and do the outside profile on all of them, put anchor seal on them, and then we'll core them all at once. Some of them, or I should say most of them, are going to be able to be cored, but this one here is probably going to be too small by the time it finishes out, but it still will make a really nice bowl itself. Still hoping to get about 20 bowl blanks out of here. Here's the rest of it. Now, in the past, you know, I would cut this up and maybe get I would cut this up and get peppermill blanks and bottle stoppers and blanks and that kind of stuff. Now that I'm doing resin work, I can actually take these pieces. So I'm just going to throw them in my little firewood burning area, and a year from now, I'll start running them through the kilns over here. And then we'll start doing resin and burl projects with them. But this is a long-term thing. And but you know, there's still some pretty decent pieces in here. So yeah, I'm just going to kind of touch on production turning here. So I'm using a 5/8 bowl gouge from David Ellsworth, and I have 3 of these gouges typically. Sometimes I only have 2. But I typically like to sharpen all of them at once, and that way I'm not going to the grinder all the time to sharpen my gouges. And it depends on what species of wood you're working with. Those 3 sharp gouges will last you probably hours of turning. Every time that you can limit how many steps you take to go and do something, it will increase production. That's 140. We'll start there. This is one of the larger blanks. This ended up being, I think, 15.5 inches wide. Just trying to get down to decent solid wood was a bit of an issue on a couple of these larger blanks. I know I said in an earlier clip that I was going to actually turn this with the, you know, like a normal bowl, but I decided against that. I was just going to lose too much on the diameter because I had cut it on an angle. So I figured it was best to just leave it natural edge, and it worked out anyway. How do you like those rays? Bird's eye. Same thing here. chatoyance, however you want to say it. I'll just briefly talk about tenon size. You know, when you've got a big block of wood like this, it's to your benefit to make as big a tenon as you can, so you've got enough mass there to hold on to the. Because I mean, this bowl blank was probably in the neighborhood of 20 or 30 pounds. So you know, you want to make sure that there's enough wood there for the jaws to grab it and hold it effectively, so that it doesn't come off the lathe. Nice stuff. Still got a flat spot there. We're getting down into good solid wood though, so pretty soon I'll be able to cut the tenon in here. Little bird's eye, these rays. One other thing on production, so I typically will rough out, and I keep roughing out until I'm done. I don't switch from finish turning to roughing out. I find every time that you have to reconfigure the lathe or move stuff out of the way or put up, like I've got a plastic wall that I put up and take down so shavings don't fly everywhere, it really kills your production. Yeah, that's no good. Is that going to bother us? I think that's good. We're going to leave that the way that is. I'll just put that between the jaws, and it shouldn't really affect anything. Yeah, you can just shove this is like a small awl, throw it, shove it in there, and if it goes all the way in, then you know that maybe you've got an issue, but it seems to go in and stop up hard, so it's probably only in there about that far. So it shouldn't really affect anything. And as you can see, I like to use a parting tool to give that nice, crisp, sharp area for the top of the jaws to hit the base of the bowl so that it's not wobbling all over the place when you put it in the chuck. Yeah, I don't even know if I've showed this before, but anyway, that's just an old chisel that the handle has come off it. And I just use a hammer on it. Yeah, I know I'm not supposed to use metal on metal. And I just grind that little nub off. And then, of course, put the species of wood on it and date it. So if you haven't been here before, this is a product that I put all over my bowls before they go into the drying shed to be dried. Anchor Seal. It's made by UC Coatings in the United States. And because we live in a cold climate, I'm using the glycol formula. So I just pour it into these paint trays. Small little roller. And this is a liquid wax that hardens when it dries, but it still remains a little flexible. So that as the bowl dries, it's going to warp and twist. And for the most part, this stuff will stay on the surface of the wood, protecting it so that it doesn't release moisture too fast. If you release moisture too fast in anything when it's drying, it is in all likelihood going to crack. So this slows down that drying process so that the moisture slowly evaporates out of the bowl, helping to prevent or reduce checking or splitting. I've used this product for many, many years. I am not affiliated with them, and I highly recommend getting it if you do bowls. And even if you don't, if you do spindle turning, do the very ends of all the end grain on your spindle blanks, and it'll work well that way too. And of course, it's very important to do the edge right along where the bark meets the wood. If the bark's going to come off, it's going to obviously come off there. But that's an area that you should pay close attention to make sure that it's sealed up well. Anyway, once the inside's taken out of this, I'll completely do the inside as well, and then it'll go in the drying shed. So one last thing before I end the day here. If I have any pieces that I haven't finished yet, I'll cover them with plastic and then just throw the shavings around the edge of them. And that's just to slow down the release of moisture so you don't get any cracking overnight. They're fine like this for a couple days. I've even left them a week and then come back to them with no cracking. You might have a little bit of mold going on, but that just turns away. But in a day or two, it will do no harm at all. All right, so we're getting ready for our first core to take out here. And, excuse me. I can't really even go any smaller on this anyway. This is the number 2. There is a number 1, which you could get a smaller bowl out of here if you wanted to. But in this case, we're only going to be able to get 1. Anyway, I like to use a square just to make sure the jig is squared up on the bed. That's 625. Once the cutter has reached this depth, I like to turn this around and put the support in the wood. Okay, so I'm just going to quickly cover this. Up till now, we've only used 1 cutter. And if you're curious, there's actually, I'll put a link at the end of this video to another video where I cover this extensively, and it's the huge maple burl and cherry crotch coring video. So what I'm doing right now is I'm going to be using my number 3 knife in this setup. So I've got my number 3 spacer. And there's the number 2, and as you can see, there's an inch in difference. And the reason for that, of course, is that way you don't go through the bottom of the next bowl. So since we're going to be using the number 3, our number 3 knife, then of course we need the number 3 spacer. So that goes down on the bed of the lathe. The coring rig butts up against it. Now we know that we have the right depth, that we're not going to cut through the money bowl, the big one on the outside. So I'll set the rig where I want it. It's not exactly where I want it right now, probably pretty close. I'll put in my number 2. This is my number 2 knife set. And that, I'll take out the first bowl. It's gone. Once that's done, I'll put in the number 3 cutter. The support is also a number 3. I'll have to get it, I haven't got it out yet. It will come in. I will probably move the base of the rig towards me so I get the right thickness that I want. And then I'll take out the second bowl. So then that means that, you know, we've got 3 bowls in total. And now I have a 4th cutter as well, but this is only 16 inches in diameter. If this was 18 inches or larger, I would then use my number 4. So hopefully that's clear. Again, I'll put a link at the end of this video where it's all laid out well for you. All right, so there's our first bowl taken out. Now we don't move this in any further. It stays right where it is. You can move it like this, but don't move it towards the headstock. There, that's probably pretty much in between the 2 of them. If I had to do this all over again, I would have ordered another handle for this, so I don't have to keep switching the handles in and out. So I really like this coring rig from Oneway Manufacturing. It's robust, you know, it's user-friendly. The only thing that I really don't care for is the cutters that you screw onto the end of the knife. They're a little hard to sharpen and they're expensive. Other than that, this is a great purchase. So as long as you keep moving that support in, say, every inch of travel with the knife, you won't have any issues. One thing that you should do, though, you should always be checking the chuck to make sure that the blank itself hasn't come loose because of vibration. This does require a bit of power to do, so I've got my lathe on its lowest torque setting, and I can still kind of stall the lathe when I'm doing this. So you do need a bit of power when you're doing this coring. So of course, this is the last thing in the roughing out process, and I'm just going to show one of these bowls. Again, you know, I'm left-handed, so it's comfortable for me to turn on the outboard end, not over the bed of the lathe like you righties do. And even wall thickness, of course, is important, and I like to rough my bowls out 1 inch thick per 10 inches in diameter. Well, what do you think? 18 bowls out of one burl. You won't see that too many places. So we ended up with two 15.5-inch blanks. Those are two 13s. Got a couple of 12s in here. 3 or 4 11s, and then 6 to 9 inch bowls are the other ones. So, you know, that just goes to show you that if I didn't have that coring rig, I probably could have made some smaller bowls off of the offcuts. So I probably would have got about maybe 6, maybe 8 bowls out of that. All those 4 sections of burl. So now I've got 18. So, you know, even if you just base the 4 that you would have gotten off the 4 blocks, you know, this is all extra material. You're making your resources go further. You're saving money, and, you know, you're saving the environment as well. And, you know, it's burl. Who wants to just whittle away all this burl? So I did a quick calculation. The extra bowls that were done during coring were probably anywhere from $1,200 to $1,500 in finished products. So that will more than pay for your coring rig the very first time you use it in a situation like this. So everything has been anchor sealed. They're ready to go in my drying shed. They'll go there for 3 months. And then I'll bring them in and start rotating them through my fridge kilns, and then we'll start finishing out a few of these. Don't forget about the links in the description below to sandpaper.ca, Starbond Adhesives, and of course Designer Epoxy. All the discount codes are down there, so make sure you check them out. And thanks for stopping by and watching. I know that this video was probably more geared towards woodturners specifically, and beginner woodturners maybe, but you know, I think a lot of people are really curious how this is done, and how, you know, this is the meat and potatoes of a woodturner's business, is getting this stuff roughed out and getting it dried. Without this process, you're not going to be able to make any finished bowls. So that's it. Hopefully you enjoyed the video. Hopefully it wasn't too long for you. We'll come back next week with something great, so make sure you stop in for that. If you haven't subscribed, please consider doing so. And don't forget to share my videos on your social media platforms. That would be much appreciated. And last but not least, don't forget that thumbs up. Anyway, we'll see you next week. Take care, stay safe, and don't forget that bell. See you next week.